I think there's something to be said for finding your calling, and regardless of what it makes, that you do it. Because we tend to be very good at the things we like doing, that call to us. You know, it's Joseph Campbell's call to adventure, this idea that you're saying you have a mother figure, a father figure, and then this uncle, this master, the sensei, that calls you to adventure and shows you a way that you could do things differently, but it's going to require a lot of you. And I think we all desire that. We all desire that call to adventure, that to be tested, and that there's demons we'll have to face on the way, and we would be transformed if only we went through that process.
That's the Downward Doug, and this is the Yoga Life Podcast. What's up, everyone? How's it going? Hopefully the dust has settled from episode 32, that solo effort I had last week, where I talked about why you shouldn't be a yoga teacher. It was a bit controversial, but sometimes important topics are. But this week, I have with me an absolute gentleman, one of my favourite guests ever on the Yoga Life podcast, because he was so fun, so authentic, so honest. The Downward Doug. Although this podcast is called the Yoga Life Podcast, and I do interview people in the yoga world, it's interesting to talk about things outside of yoga. And not everyone is comfortable speaking on a microphone, conscious that they're being recorded. But Doug is not the shy type. He's comfortable in front of the mic. The guy is a stuntman. Never met one before. So he's a stuntman. He's done a little bit of acting. He teaches a style of yoga called warrior yoga, which incorporates martial arts. So he's got a martial arts background, which is really interesting. And he's also from Botswana. I know, I didn't know where it was either. And if you're from Botswana, sorry, I just don't hear much about it in Ireland. But he had a really interesting backstory, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. If you do, as always, please leave a review on iTunes. And you can get in touch with me with any questions that you have. I hope you have fun listening to myself and Doug natter away. And here's Doug. So Doug,
Talk to me.
welcome.
Hey, Kevin, I'm super excited about this. I mean, listeners out there might think, what's happened is Kevin's been on the lookout for the most influential yoga teachers out there, interesting people with a story, got something to say, and that's how they come across me. But that is just a lie. What happened is I saw Kevin doing amazing things with people I respected, and being the chancer I am, I was like, I'm gonna DM him up and ask him, can I be on there? So that's how this actually came about. All right, I asked him just for the record, everyone.
But Doug, that works really well, because it's, if you want to speak, that's so important. Like, it's only, I mean, as we were saying earlier, these episodes are only as interesting as the dynamic between the two people. And I think a lot of people who maybe aren't as familiar with this new type of media, podcasting, they don't consume podcasts, they're very self-conscious of being recorded. And you're really good at, for example, you do a lot of Instagram stories. So you're really confident in front of a camera. Are you an actor? As in, like, you're a stuntman?
I'm a stuntman, but
a stuntman, just saying it.
Yeah,
no big deal.
So that's the thing on the side. It's a weird two lines I live on at the moment. So the stunt thing is funny though, because I got acting parts from it, which I never sought out to get, but it becomes like a joke among stunt guys. You ask them to fall off something, set themselves on fire, scary stuff. They're like, yeah, let's do it. You ask them to talk in front of the camera. Like, nah, you know what, I'll leave that one out. You can hear the grumbles. No one wants to actually do it. So it becomes like a running joke on sets where your boss will be like, all right, Doug, you love talking, all right? You're going to say something now. Expecting there to be like an embarrassment. And I quickly realized after a few of those incidents that it's how you own it. So there's two options. Either you can kind of go into your shell a little bit and half-ass it. Yeah. And like anything, when you don't commit, it's just people feel that embarrassment and they feel it for you, where you can do the opposite, where you can go all out. And admittedly, a few times I maybe went too far out with the lines they gave me or whatever. But if you own it, people are like, if he's not embarrassed, I won't be embarrassed.
Exactly.
And there's a lot to be said. And I think the same happens with teaching. You feel when a teacher isn't confident, you feel it. It resonates off them. And you lose confidence in them. And that's what I'm trying to learn more and more, is that no one actually knows what you're about to teach for that day. So when I miss out something I was going to teach, I'm like, oh man, I forgot that thing. They don't know. Like, just use the class, and you don't have to teach what you wrote down.
Yeah.
I think a big thing learning, I'm a very new teacher, and you're always talking about how this medium is good for new teachers, and a lot of new teachers listen to this. But that's a hard thing to learn, is to step away from the structure that you've put in place and read the class, you know. But to answer your question, yes, I've had some acting roles, which I think helps being in front of camera. But Instagram stories is another beast, because you're doing it in public. I still, if you saw, I wish you could see kind of the minutes before I do the post and afterwards. I kind of look up and down the street first to make sure no one's walking, because I just can't. I'm of the age where Instagram wasn't a thing, and now it's a thing. Yeah. So I feel ridiculous still talking into my phone. Yeah. And like, you know, on camera, on microphone, you've got to be more, because it takes like 20% off you. You know, if you give your normal energy, it comes across a bit flat. You've got to really present it.
Definitely. I mean, you've got 15. Is it 15 seconds?
15 seconds. Yeah, that stresses me out. No end.
That's a skill in itself. What I've realised with podcasting is I tend to speak quite slowly generally. I'm like, some people think I'm a little bit dopey because I have big pauses, in between when I say things. And that's why the 15-second story thing doesn't suit me, because I don't get it all in. But you, as you said, you have to give almost like a turbo version of yourself, because as well, I mean, look at the medium. People have the phone in their hand, they're flicking.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
It was just me smashing the cup of tea down in celebration of how good it is.
Like a Viking.
Good at stories, terrible at podcasts, smashing things.
No, it's all good. But it's the medium and understanding the skill behind it. Like, I have been told off by people for preaching about how Instagram is a photography platform, and I think that if you're going to post photographs, they should say something interesting anyway, or at least be aesthetically pleasing. And some people don't feel that's important, which is fair enough. But I do think the message you're giving should, or how you deliver it, should work well with the medium it's going through. And therefore, stories, it's really important to be like bang, bang, bang. And you're talking to the camera and you're very getting that message across, because you know people's attention span is flick it to the next one.
Absolutely, and I think that's a problem. It is.
It is.
This idea, it's the same. You know, you're talking about you wanting, doing your videos, your yoga videos too. And once you start getting into that, you'll start to look at your analytics, and you'll look at audience retention rather. And people drop off like that. You've got to get them in early, tell them what you're going to give them, and produce it, because otherwise they just stop watching. You know, reading books now, the ability to read a book, you'll be hard pressed to find people that want to read a book, because the satisfaction is a delayed satisfaction. And speaking of which, you know, you're talking about books to read. Sapiens, fantastic book, you know, but it takes time. It's not a quick read, and sometimes you have to stop and kind of think about it. Well, I did, at least. Maybe I'm just a dummy. I was like, right, I have to compute what he just said, because I need to test out if that's true in my life. And for the most part, well, all of it I did. I found it fascinating. But that ability to delay satisfaction or gratification is something, it's a tool of growing up. You know, it's something we learn as children. To become an adult, you have to delay gratification. To become an adult, to actually do something worthwhile. Yeah. You know, from editing this, not particularly fun. It's going to take some time. But the end product is enjoyable because it took time. Yeah. And things like Instagram are giving us this satisfaction, but it's very shallow each time. That like is a little endorphin hit, but it's not substantial. It's got no legs to it. So that combination is a problem, I think. And I think as yogis, it's particularly hard, because we're trying to teach this idea of mindfulness through this medium of mindlessness. Man, it's mental.
That's the biggest irony, isn't it, in this yoga industry? You're trying to teach people to be present and to not be seduced by aesthetics, but yet that's what that platform promotes.
It is. But then it's tough. I mean, Nelson Mandela spoke about it in Long Walk to Freedom, about this guilt of using a system that was built on, how can I say it, this white system from abroad that really oppressed them, but he was using the tools of their education to bring them down. And that's kind of how I see what we need to do. You use that platform as a way to show people that there's another way. Get the interest in the world that they're living to take them out of it.
Yeah. I mean, because Instagram's not going to go anywhere. And I think, or it's just going to morph into something else.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated by social media and how it affects the social structure of our society, the fabric of our society. And there's no, I don't think there's a point in becoming a Luddite and saying, okay, I reject all technology, because you need to learn how to manage it and understand when you're using it excessively. For me, using Instagram now has become a vehicle to promote this podcast.
Absolutely.
Because I think in terms of showing my truest self, I can do it best through this medium. For many different reasons, because for many reasons. But you're a podcast fan, aren't you?
Absolutely love them. I mean, I'm a fiend.
You're a fiend.
Erica is always like, how do you listen to all of that? I'm like, because I put it on no matter what I'm doing. If I'm washing dishes, there's a podcast on. If I go for a walk, there's a podcast on. And I've always been someone who likes consuming information. And for a long time, there was a lot of mindless information out there, boring stuff like, you had to watch whatever was on TV. And now we've got this medium where you can actually extract information. Like people are telling you interesting facts. And I find that fascinating. And podcasts, we were talking about it just before we started, about how you were saying there's a real medium for podcasts and they're on the rise, and you like to just sometimes listen to Joe Rogan in the background. And it links to something you said, I think with Patrick Beach, where you were saying the older you get, the more lonely you get. And I think that's true across the board, not just as older you get, but we're becoming more insular by the day. Like the technology is allowing us to customize everything to us. So we don't compromise anymore. I want to watch this now, therefore I have YouTube, there I can put on that video. I don't even want to wait for TV to tell me what I can watch. When it comes to how you live your life, you can choose any class you want. You don't even have to pay memberships. You pay one of class. It's all custom. The phone is called an iPhone. It's all about me in this world, all right? Which is fine, and it's a luxury in a way, but you realize it's relying on someone else or being relied on that gives you a purpose in life or gives you a relationship. That's a nice thing to have. And the more self-dependent we get, the more lonely we get. So my theory with the podcast and things is, I realize when I listen to it, I think you live alone?
No, my girlfriend lives in.
Okay,
just recently moved in.
So before that, you'll know I live alone back home, and you just realize there's this longing for communication. And when I listen to podcasts, without knowing, I probably feel like I know Joe Rogan as a friend. I'm getting to know these people because I'm being privy to their conversation. I think that rise of loneliness and then the rise of consuming podcasts are related, because we want to have these conversations, but we're living in ways where we don't allow ourselves. Well, you could have the conversation. You could go for dinner with your friends, but we don't do it.
Well, actually, Doug, and I'm really glad you said this, because just before you were coming here, I was just tidying up the house. When you have a guest, you tidy that's the time. I tidy the place, and I was listening to Joe Rogan in the background, and I was thinking that he's a bit like the uncle I never had.
Yeah.
And if you grow up and you don't, this is no reflection on my mum or dad, like they're great and stuff, but I'm saying I've heard that every boy growing up needs their father figure, but then also like a coach figure. That's generally how it progresses, or a master or a sensei.
Yeah.
And listening to Joe Rogan, he has helped me completely change my mindset about my life and how I feel as a man, as a human being. Completely. Like, it's made the difference between me making fundamental decisions in my life that, God love, say, my parents or my elders, they are not as maybe insightful in terms of their advice would be, when I was growing up, just get a job in a bank, you'll be all right. And that's and they did the best they could.
Exactly. It's true to them, to their experience. Absolutely.
Yeah. But Joe Rogan he's an anomaly. He's a, for want of a better phrase, he's a man's man, but yet can be so sensitive.
Yeah.
He's like Oprah for guys.
Yeah, and he's interested in so many things. And he introduced you, because you trust him. He's without being mean, he's generic enough that you go, Joe, yeah, he looks like a normal enough guy. He's not some sort of geek. He's not so into it. Well, in a way he is, but he doesn't allude to the fact that he's that. So you go like, okay, he's sound. I can trust him. And he gets his people on. You think, okay, quantum physics with Sean Carroll. All right, let's see what that's about. And you listen. You're like, that is fascinating. And you broaden your horizons. Like you said, he gives you this access. He is the key to all those other genres you never even thought about. And I think it's great. And it opens up your mind to think of these new ways and other things you may be interested in. And that's great. But he's also great with critical thinking, not taking things at face value. And also unashamedly honest. His long form conversation allows him to delve into these subjects that we're really shy away from in mainstream media, because for the fear of God that we just upset someone who is preaching tolerance and is intolerant of what we say, which is the biggest irony in this PC culture. But it allows that, and he's unapologetic about it. He says, this is how I feel, this is what the data says, so on. So I find that very interesting. And in a world that is becoming more and more restricted on what we can and cannot say, I think to our own detriment, it's great to have that outlet.
And also that the medium itself allows that, because if he was to say what he said, all the stuff he says in tweets,
in a soundbite,
it can get so misunderstood. And I feel that I was talking about this in the episode I did recently about why you shouldn't be a yoga teacher, and how people want, when you have this thing Instagram, which is like an art gallery of your life, you're producing art. You're producing this feed, these little stories, and I think it shouldn't reflect your life. It should reflect it reflects a version of your life, because it's an art form. It's different to real life, but at the same time, I find it hard to maintain an image. And because I don't know what image I'm trying to put across, and I just find with these conversations I can get on a deeper level, and plus as well it's very intimate. I mean, people have it in their headphones or they have it in their car.
Yeah, I never thought about that. You're right. The headphones does put it right. It's like injecting straight into your brain. There's nothing in the way. It's like boom.
I feel bad now for being in people's brains.
That's it. Hey, I'm here too. It's all right. This is good. It's very roomy in here.
No offense. Yeah. So, Doug, you mentioned Erica. This is your SO.
My SO.
Significant other.
Nice. I should be better.
I just learned that the other day.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Well, your girlfriend put you onto it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you see. That's where we learn our best stuff. Girlfriends, they always...
and you're in Dublin for the whole weekend?
Yeah. Well, I'm in Dublin, but I'm also going to Belfast to Flow Studio tomorrow, doing a bit of traveling. Like I said, I'm trying to, whenever I travel somewhere, I want to do some teaching, and very much this is a business trip for me. I want to really focus on my teaching. As you mentioned before, I work as a stuntman, but I've actually taken the 3-month hiatus. I realized you don't get good at anything by doing it a bit. Like, I want to really engross myself in it. So currently teaching in London, I pretty much take on any cover they've got. I'm like, I'll take it. Early shift, I'll take it, and I want to get good at it. So these weekends are a way for me also to do these workshops, to immerse myself in that and promote who I am and my brand and the things I'm doing, the retreats, the workshops, the teaching, and just to practice my skill again better as a teacher. So we'll be going to Belfast, to answer your question, and then back to Dublin Yoga Hub, which has always been so good to me. Like, there's something about that studio.
Yoga Hub.
The minute I walked in, Erica, the SO, she introduced me to Matt and Susie. And they were so, like, within minutes, they were like, yeah, you got to come teach down here. No sort of like, I don't know. They were like, sure, come down. And I really appreciated that,
Is Flow Studio big? Because the only other time I heard of them was when Jason Crandall was teaching his workshop.
They love Jason. And Patrick's been there a few times.
Right. They're
booking some guests. I actually went to go see Patrick. Speaking of Erica, I met Erica. Our first date was at Patrick Beach's class at Wellfest.
Your first date?
Our first date.
So you arranged to go there together?
Get out. I went to Lee Tracy's class the day before.
Yeah.
Sat in the front row, sat next to Erica. And Lee Tracy was teaching. Then we hung around afterwards, and she's one of her students. We started chatting, and then she was like, well, why don't we come back tomorrow? And we'll do Patrick's class together. And we did. And my friend Faisal was doing like the head class later, so we went to that class together.
Faisal, oh yeah.
Good friend of mine. We started as extras together, very close friends on that film set called John Carter of Mars. This movie that tanked. John Carter of Mars. You know what crazy? You're talking about Japan. It's massive in Japan. They finally turned a profit when they went to DVD.
Right.
But we met on that job. So anyway, so I'd seen her there, and I met Patrick Beach in person, and I stopped him. I, at the time, was working on Game of Thrones in Belfast, came down just for the weekend to see the lay of the land. And I think I was teaching at Lululemon that Sunday, or maybe the next week, something like that. And I saw Patrick, and I literally walked in the same time he was, and he was just in front of me. And I was with my mate who knows nothing about yoga, Dan Houston, good friend of mine, and he was like, I was like, mate, you don't understand. That's Patrick Beach. It's Patrick Beach. And I was like, he's got the face of Jesus. Look at him. He's got that such the kind face. You know, you just look at him and you're like, oh, man. I just want to stroke his face. He's just... So I stopped him and I was like, Patrick, I'll get you, like...
Did you say you stopped him or stalked him?
A bit of both. Column A, column B.
Okay.
Who knows the difference by the end, you know? Stopped him and I was like, I've got to tell you, you were my inspiration to get into yoga. I was like, it can be a masculine thing and it can be very impressive. And it's weird. He's fierce with his practice and so gentle with his speech.
Yeah.
It's a weird dynamic. It's a weird dichotomy. Mm-hmm. But I will say this. I got obsessed with the way he says downward facing. He goes, downward facing dog. So next time, and if you're listening, Patrick, I absolutely love that. He's got that. I don't know, it must be the Seattle accent. But yeah, so Flow Studio, it is big. They've actually got 3 studios now in Belfast. One's in Hollywood, which is wicked, just outside Belfast.
Okay.
The one in Cathedral Quarter in Belfast itself is right next door to Established Coffee 2, which is really nice. Really nice area, beautiful studio, and very well run. So get down there if you can, if you're in Belfast.
I've never been to Belfast.
Oh, mate, you've got to go. It's...
Why?
You know...
Apart from Flow Studio.
Well, a couple of reasons, all right? So obviously we're working there. The last few years we've had to work there. That's where Game of Thrones was based. Studios were based there, and we'd go abroad for the other parts, the castles, stuff like that. But the town is small, kind of like Dublin. You can walk everywhere, but even smaller. The community is small, so you see everyone, you get to know people. And you were saying before on the other podcast about how we've got to the stage where things are too big and we don't know our neighbors. They're small enough that they know their neighbors. There's a real community. You go clubbing, by the way, Alibi Club, one of the funnest places you'll ever go to for the same reasons. You know people. There's a friendliness. You would have recognized people from the stores that you were at that day. And people want to chat.
Wow.
You know, the Irish people in general are lovely. In Belfast, you know, the same. Just a beautiful place. It's got a lot going on, and I think it's on the rise, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I've got to check it out. It's like 2 hours on the train or something, is it?
Forget the train, but get the bus. The bus is like £7, and it's like an hour 20.
Really?
Yeah, maybe a little bit more. Maybe an hour 30 for the longer buses. It's well easy.
Okay.
That's how I used to commute back and forth from Belfast to Dublin. And it's a nice bus with Wi-Fi.
I'm
Again, with the sponsors, mate. I'm teeing you up here. All right, you just need to follow up on all of these that I've mentioned.
I actually contacted a company today about a coffee company asking if they would be interested in being a sponsor. Yeah.
Any news back?
Well, it's just I haven't even sent them a proposal yet, but I thought, why not? You know,
I'm telling you. Think about me getting hold of you. Like. Just you throw it out there.
Yeah.
The thing is, so many people are going to tell you no in your life. Don't be one of them.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, the way I see it, if you use a product, then I particularly like supporting like local companies.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But so when you rang the doorbell, I was Googling Botswana. Because I had an idea where it was and. Why did you move to London from Botswana?
Well, I wasn't even straight from there. I'll tell you what. So, born and raised in Botswana, and you've done a good thing. You kind of know where it is. That's normally the biggest conversation stopper I can do. Where are you from? Botswana. Dead silent. Because either people are too embarrassed, or they're like, I don't know about that. You know, looked at Botswana or Motswana. Grew up there, but I've got to be honest. I've always liked city. Like I feel like in a small town that I grew up in, I always felt like I was missing out. So for me, it was like, I need to get out. So I went to the States first, worked there for a while, then came to London. And I just like that. I like the energy of a city. I like the opportunity. It just feels like bigger cities that anything could happen. You could do anything. You know, and maybe it's a
Yeah.
misnomer, maybe it's complete myth, but I feel that. And what you feel can often become the reality. And that's very much the opportunity afforded to me in London with the movie work. It's like people think it's all based in Hollywood. Majority of films are filmed in the UK.
Right.
Yeah, it's unknown, but they get a tax break of like 20% for filming here. So a lot of them are based here. They might do bits out there, but they're based here. So we get the biggest movies coming through here. So it's a great opportunity to do it.
What's the sorry to interrupt you, but before I forget, what's the thing I was googling that ethnicity of people?
Swana
people.
Swana. So Botswana means people of the Swana. So Swana is the like tribe. And then if you're from that country, a little known fact, but it gets confusing because you get like Britain, British, Ireland, Irish, and you try to use the same format for that, doesn't work out. You're from Botswana, you're a Motswana.
A
Motswana, M-O-T, Tswana.
Okay.
Because you're part of that tribe. You're one of them, which I love that inclusion. Like it's a nice feeling. And it's an interesting country because it's all one tribe, the whole country. So this may be testing the knowledge of most people about Africa, but Africa was very much drawn up on a map in Austria under some king. Like they just got sick of fighting when they got to Africa, all the different European countries. And they were like, guys, it's killing our resources. Can we just get together? We'll draw up the map and we'll say whose is whose. And that's why Africa's full of straight lines. Like your borders are normally based on your mountain ranges or your rivers, you know? You look at Africa, it starts like on the outsides and then just starts going in straight lines. And they divided and dissected entire families, now separated by a border that shouldn't be there. Or you've put in groups of people that don't get along and contain them within borders. So that in itself caused a lot of problems. Lucky enough for Botswana, that didn't happen. So we just have the Tswana. And as a result, the racial tension between tribes is not apparent. We haven't had any any tribal wars, any civil wars. Nothing like apartheid. It's a fabulous country. And very gentle people and very kind people.
Do you miss it?
I miss my mom. You know, she loves it there. She's always saw that as a place. It's funny. My home, it's different. For you guys, you could literally go back to visit the house you grew up in. If I went back to the town I grew up in, it was a diamond mine owned by De Beers, that you lived in a house that De Beers gave you. So if I went back, it would resemble nothing of the place I grew up in. For most of us, I guess.
What's De Beers? That sounds
De Beers is the biggest diamond mine in the world.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Oppenheimers a family own all the diamonds, basically. 80% of the world's diamonds, something like that.
Oh,
Don't
God.
quote me on that. Like I said, we need a Jamie. Yeah. Check those facts. But the country itself got very rich on the diamonds, which is great. And it's great for tourism, stuff like that. But I don't miss it because it's not my place. Like, I feel like I'm stagnating when I'm there. So I go back to see my mom. And she feels differently. She feels that's where she's inspired. And it always feels bad for me because I would love my mom, like you're saying, these communities of people living closer together. I'm kind of always jealous of big Indian families or Italian families or Greek families when they have these big meals. And even though they're shouting at each other, I'm like, it's so nice that they have each other, you know. And in an ideal world, I'd love the whole family to live together. But she feels the same way about the UK as I feel about Botswana. So we're in this quagmire. But we kind of compromise. She comes to visit here, I go visit there. But
what about the rest of your family? You got brothers and sisters?
My brother's in the UK too. He's in London, just outside. So I see him. He's got a little boy and a little girl, Matthew and Iris. And then his wife's South African. So I get to see him too, which is great. And that I think that softens the blow to have some family, you know, but then it makes it harder because my mom is in Botswana. Luckily for us, I don't want to say a misanthrope. That's not correct. It's not that she doesn't like people, but she likes her own company.
What does that mean, misanthrope?
Misanthrope. You despise humanity. You don't like.
Oh,
other
wow.
People. Yeah. So most people sometimes get confused between people that are like they like to be on their own. Some people like to be on their own because they don't like other people. Some people like to be on their own just because they prefer that quiet. My mom's like that. She likes her own place. It's funny. Her biggest like mind moment is when she sees me on TV and she's like, I can't believe my son would want to be in front of a camera that's then going to go out to other people. Because to her, that's the worst idea ever. She's like, I can think of nothing worse than being in front of a crowd, let alone a camera. Like, it is a little bit like this or a little bit like teaching. it's very personal. It's very, it's all about you, you know, and all eyes are on you. And some people like it, some people don't. And some people that are good don't like it, and some people that do like it aren't good at it, you know.
I mean, when I speak to my mum or dad about what I do, they just don't really get it. They don't understand why would I make videos, why would I do these podcasts, and their assessment of if it's valuable is how much money does it make. But it's such a different world now compared to when they were growing up. The internet's changed everything.
It has. It's blown it wide open.
Yeah, you're your own publicist, you're your own marketeer, your own manager, and you were saying earlier before we started recording how when you're standing in front of a class of people, you feel sick with nerves sometimes, and for most people, they would just say, "Sod this. Why would I put myself through that?"
Yeah.
But I think that's really what it comes down to, doesn't it? In terms of, do you make a living from it? Yeah,
and it's a weird metric, you know, for life. If your life is worthwhile, do you make money off it? It's an unfortunate truth of life, but it is an unfortunate metric. As an example, people that play video games, up until probably 5 years ago, the same metric could be applied. There's no point in doing it because you make no money. Now you look at those guys, they're making over $1 million a year. And it's kind of, the one thing that really appeals to me about the American spirit is that it doesn't matter what you are, just be good or be the best at what that thing is. Whether that's lawnmower racing or cutting down trees or playing games or being an athlete, they have that mentality. I think there's something to be said for finding your calling, and regardless of what it makes, that you do it. Because we tend to be very good at the things we like doing, that call to us. You know, it's Joseph Campbell's call to adventure, this idea that you were saying you have a mother figure, a father figure, and then this uncle, this master, the sensei, that calls you to adventure and shows you a way that you could do things differently, but it's going to require a lot of you. And I think we all desire that. We all desire that call to adventure, that to be tested, and that there's demons we'll have to face on the way, and we would be transformed if only we went through that process. And that's something that's innate in us, and that's why we're attracted to the movies that we are, and the books, and those fables have been around since before Christ. You know, tens of thousands of years ago, we've been appealing to those stories, and the same thing applies now. And it's so funny. That thing, like I was saying to you, that nervousness to me is also a sign that I'm in the right place. You know, that I care enough that it makes me nervous, that I want to give all the students the best class they have. Erica always gets upset with me because she's like, my barometer is that if no one comes to me after the class to say, thank you, I really enjoyed it, I'm kind of gutted. Like, not for my ego, but I'm like, oh, did they enjoy it? Because you must know from teaching, sometimes you don't get a lot back in the face.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know when I practice, I'm straight face. And when I go stern face, I look kind of like an axe murderer. You know, the shaved head and the beard doesn't help either. But you look at their faces and you're like, is everyone enjoying this? Like, and sometimes they will come to you after and they're like, I really enjoy it. And you'll be like, it's so hard to tell, that feedback. I think that's part of being a good teacher, is knowing that feedback. Also, doing your class regardless. You know, teaching them something because they came, and giving them something that was useful. I mean, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. How long have you been a teacher?
Like 2 years barely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's funny you say that, because I was saying to my girlfriend yesterday, I have to appreciate I can't be everything to everyone. So there'll be someone down the back of the class with just resting bitch face. Do you know, when I say bitch, I mean, like, could be any gender. And I mean all the genders. Right?
Don't get me started.
Come on. So they have that. Actually, you know, funny, just a quick one on this PC thing, actually. I was just listening to the Yoga Land podcast, Jason Crandall and these.
And can I stop you there to interject? I listen to all those podcasts, right? Yoga Land, The Balanced Blonde. I still think this is better.
Yeah, man.
I was surprised, Kevin, because I know this is, you know, a new thing for you. But I listened to that. It was just so much more sincere. I was like, I want to carry on listening to. I feel like I'm privy to this conversation. I feel like I'm in the room. So, you know, props to you.
Wow, man. Thanks a lot. That's a big praise. Cheers, Doug, man. I appreciate it, mate. So I was listening to it just now, and they used the term resting bitch face, and Andrea said it, and then supposedly Jason was mortified that she said bitch. You know, you shouldn't say that word, and then they abbreviated to RBF, whatever, RBF, and I thought, come on, man, like, let's just chill out a little bit.
We've lost context. That's what's happened. And
Yes.
with context, we've lost sense of humor.
Yeah.
So no longer is important the context in which you said a word. It just matters that you said the word. Therefore, you must be, sexist or racist or an oppressor. Instead of going like, what if I was just relaying what someone else said? Like, no, context doesn't matter. Like, the context is so important.
It's so important.
Otherwise, teachers that teach about Nazi Germany are then also by proxy Nazis. We can't get into that world.
Yeah.
And the problem is that is the slippery slope we are on currently. And we need to check ourselves. We need to have freedom of thought and freedom of speech.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Do you know,
all right,
no, this is a good
I
one.
had a vent.
No, Doug, I like the path you're on, and I'm beside you on this path, because this is, again, we're talking about this, we're not supporting it, we're just discussing it.
Yes, and this is important. We've stopped being able to even have a thought before someone goes, that's wrong. You should be able to think freely so you can even maybe come around to the idea that, oh no, that was a stupid idea. But if you don't have that ability, you don't even get round to that.
Yeah, and you can't. I mean, how do you communicate ideas via discussions, and important issues are
hard.
Will cause offence sometimes to a minority of people, sometimes, or one person, and the more people you're sharing that message to, the higher the probability of more people being offended. But and I'm really conscious of this because when I first started teaching yoga, I was quite generic in my speech, and I didn't show my personality at all because I didn't know how to act. I had no role models. All the role models I had were very floaty in their language and hippies, and
it might not have felt right to you, but you're like, that's what I've heard, so that must be the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I was so like, well, I'm not a hippie and I'm not floaty. I can't think of a better word than that.
No, I get what you mean though. Flowery in their speech.
Yeah.
Quiet, soft.
Yeah. And float your hand.
Yeah.
And I'm not like referring to any gender here. I'm just talking about style.
But also, that can be true to someone.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
I knew that it wasn't true to me, and I felt myself in that same feeling of being a fraud, going like, this isn't me. Like, I don't even recognize that person.
But I think in order to do your best, you can't hide your natural nature, and people like, I've never actually met him, but do you ever met Stuart Gilchrist?
Yes. Hold on.
Long grey hair, dreadlocks.
No, but I know he is. A friend of mine goes to his classes. He's very good, isn't he?
He's supposed to be amazing.
Yeah.
But he supposedly will be a bit controversial, say stuff that he'll like maybe drop the F-bomb and this type of thing. And I really respect that. I'm like, he just doesn't give a shit, basically.
My mom has always said that. She said, the brave people aren't the ones that you see saying, the climate's going down, we need to recycle, I'm anti-rape, and like all these things, very, virtue singly going, I'm against these obvious bad things. I respect more the people that, not that I just like people having different ideas. That's why even someone like the flat earthers, I appreciate them because they're putting forward an alternate argument. They're not being sucked in, but whatever's around, they've at least given the thought to it. Well, some of them, because we have a few that I work with on set. You can imagine on a film set, you're there for 16 hours, conversations come up, and we get some guys that are flat earthers, and I'm okay with that. I don't like the idea of people saying, oh, you guys must be idiots because you believe in that. I don't like that either. But if I ask you to expand on your theory and you go, I don't know, just because globes, I'm like, no. Like, if you're going to believe in something, get the information.
Yeah.
And I looked into it and I was like, actually, the stuff is quite compelling. If you have certain caveats about how far the Earth is away from the sun, then some of it makes sense. But even they didn't know that. And it's just the same idea that how many of the things do we believe in that we don't know? And for instance, I didn't understand why the Earth had to be round. I had just accepted that. And I think the flat Earth movement is less about them saying that this is definitely the way and more about them saying to you, do you even know what you believe and why? And that's worthwhile.
Yeah, because it forces you to re-examine something you just think
and
for
that's
granted.
why conversations and debates and people challenging you are so good. But we can't have challenging each other when we go, you're not allowed to talk because you're a white male who's got white privilege, therefore you are excluded from this conversation. That's not how we get better.
I will say, though, I do think it's great that people are becoming more conscientious about how they make other people feel. I think that's great.
Yeah.
We're becoming maybe more sensitive because we realise that we can say something that's viewed by millions of people straight away. But I do worry about the policing of language, and because we are professional communicators.
Yeah, yeah. And
What else is a teacher?
You're given this platform once a week, twice a week, 5 times a week, where you get to tell people what you think, you know, and I think that can't be taken lightly. You know, you've got to think about your message when you put forward. And that's what I've been trying to do now with my classes more, is having a theme or message to go along with what we're doing, so that it becomes an art form. Like you watch a good movie or a good soundtrack or anything like that, they're compelling, telling you stories in different layers. The drums are telling you something, the same thing as the bass line, and the rhythm is telling you. When you watch a film, the way they depict the screen, how far the subjects are apart, is telling you literal distance between them. You know, we love stories as humans. We absolutely love stories. And that's why this idea of discounting anyone from the conversation, I think, is a bad idea. The weird thing is, the majority of people that do that see themselves as progressives. And my argument is that we've been judging people by their inclusion of a tribe for centuries. And now all we've done is gone, oh, now this tribe, for instance, male or your race, we've just drawn a line in the sand and said, if you're part of that tribe, then you don't get to say something. That's not progress. That's the same thing. We're judging people by how they look or how they are subscribed to a group that they had no choice over. What we should be going is, this is novel. I know, stick with me. How about we just judge people by what they say, think, and do? And it doesn't matter what tribe they're part of. If they act like an ass, then we react accordingly. That's what I'm not seeing now, which concerns me. And it's compulsion of speech. What people don't realize is how long before the government says, oh, if you're saying something bad about the prime minister or president, that's not good either, because that's making civil unrest. And those are part of the same thing, and people don't realize that. And I hold that in a much higher regard than whether people don't think that my opinion is that, you know, highly rated. I don't care.
You're thinking, where could this lead to? Like a dystopian future?
Exactly. We've worked so hard to get to this
Mao
place.
or something.
But that is it. And Jordan Peterson always talks about order and chaos. And the antidote to order isn't necessarily chaos, and the order isn't necessarily the antidote to chaos, and vice versa. You want to find that line between the two. At the moment, if you have too much order, too much policing, the natural progression is totalitarianism and fascism, because you get told exactly what you have to do. You know. So anyway, but I find it interesting. But you were talking about Stuart Gilchrist about the F-bomb. I've got an unusual playlist. Like, I like to put my music in because, like you, I started very generic. I think that's natural. Yeah. You try find your voice and your theme as you go through. And I was like, the music they're telling me to play, I'm like, it does not resonate with me. Like, I use the music as a tool, not just for me, but for them. But if I'm feeling good, like, I have a lot of
What'd you play then? Oh, yeah.
Like quite a lot of Kanye.
Naughty words?
Yeah, but this is what has just come up recently, because a few naughty words came in. I was like, I've noticed I've started like distracting people. I know when it's coming, you know? And I'll go like, now deep inhale, make a big sound as you do it, and exhale, so I'm covering the words. But I'm like, if I could have the choice, I'd rather no naughty words. I don't know why. But they are in there. I don't know. That music, it's evocative. Yeah. You know? And it's got to be true to you. And those songs, I think, have their place. But yeah, I haven't made my decision up. What is your playlist kind of, what do you go with?
Mine is classical music. And I just stick with classical music, or I do like kind of trip hop type music.
Yeah, okay. So we cross over there, but that's exactly. Trip hop, I think, is great because it's that BPM that's just right, but it's kind of funky, it's kind of fun.
I used to have lyrics, and there was one, I went to a class that someone had Alan Watts playing, like him speaking.
Lovely, over the top of, my God.
Over the top, and I do love Alan Watts, I really love him, but what I've realised is that, and I've been in Shavastans when people have played Alan Watts, but I really think that I'd much prefer the teacher saying something like that, as opposed to it being a recording. Yeah. And I think that, it just made me think about how music hugely affects how you feel, the ambiance. Yeah. And when someone goes into class, I actually think, like, I have to have the smells on, whether it be incense or whatever it is, the lighting right, and the music. That has to be on. To me, it's almost like they're coming into your house, even though...
It's the trifecta, huh? My smell game's not on point. Damn it. Yeah, see how I'm learning here. This is what I like about this.
But man, do you know the smell game? You got to be... I was carrying a diffuser around with me everywhere and just would spill... and some studios don't allow you to burn anything.
Oh no.
No, you're not allowed to burn anything at all.
Do like a little sage or incense
I
going
know,
around
I
there.
love a bit of sage, but so sometimes I burn it on the sly without telling them.
Oh,
But now,
God, man, you
now-
are a rebel. Look at this. Yeah, you remind me of a skit I've always wanted to do of like the rock and roll yoga star. I kind of saw it as myself, you know. I was like, oh, maybe I'd take this to another level. Instead of being, like you said, generic, I come in with leather trousers, no t-shirt on, smoking. Like with the Harley riding in, just squeaking in. All right, guys, everyone up, down dog. You call that down dog's disgusting. Burn him with a cigarette and leave, you know.
the bad yogi.
Yeah, just some badass guy, you know.
Yeah. So actually, that's a good thing to ask you about now is your workshops. I was chatting to Sue of Yoga Hub.
Lovely Sue.
Loves-
Great hair. Great hair,
amazing hair.
right?
Yeah, amazing hair. And I was like, she said, "Oh, are you going to Doug's workshops?" I'm not because me and my
Oh, God, I thought you were coming.
No,
Okay.
me and my girlfriend were going. I
God,
got
this girl again.
as I said, like, you know, we were saying earlier before we start recording. Oh, I don't know. What I should
No,
say,
you
say
can't.
this.
Yeah.
I can't say this,
I don't know if it's great, although now that I said you can't say it, now it sounds like it could be worse.
so I'll say it.
Okay, yeah, say it.
But no, I'm going to say it.
I'm not scared of it. Don't tell her I said it.
My girlfriend is like, she's like a project, as in what I'm getting at is, oh God.
I did warn you.
I know.
I did warn you.
No,
Go
hold
on, mate.
a second.
You've made your bed now. Go on.
Okay, so we were saying earlier before we started recording that we spend so much time thinking about work, and what we do. And she said, "Oh, let's go on holiday together in the summer." And the first thing I thought of is which yoga studios can I email to teach workshops at or be a guest teacher. Not thinking, oh, where's nice to go for food in this holiday destination. And it made me realise that I think like that all the time. I think constantly thinking about continuing what I'm doing, and I need to. You have buckets in life. You have your job, you have your family, your lover, your whoever that may be, and I think it's important that you give attention to that person. So what I'm saying with, like, as in she's a project for me, is that I obviously want to make her really happy, and you sometimes, well, I feel, maybe as a man, I don't know, that I want to be the archetypal man and like make money and be successful and support her and stuff, right? Even though she doesn't need supporting,
No,
but I just
fine.
like to be able to do things with her and not have to worry about money. But I think men are foolish in thinking that that's all a woman wants. That if you work hard and you can then take them the odd weekend away, that's not as important, I don't think, as actually when you get to the end of your day, you might be knackered listening to them, sitting down, listening to them, getting up in the morning, spending time with them, not just doing your own thing. And that's what I mean by giving her attention.
Yeah.
How did I do that, Doug?
No, mate, you did well.
I'm
I
sweating.
was a little bit worried.
Sweating.
I was a little worried for a while there. You had shovel in hand. There was a hole being dug, and somehow you built a staircase. It was amazing to watch. It was a real roller coaster.
Thanks,
it was
man.
great being on this end. Just watching you hang a noose,
Squirm.
hang a noose, and then undo it. I was like, whew, that was close. No, you did great. But I also think you've highlighted there the difference, I think, innate in guys and girls and just how we communicate. I think we are quite pragmatic as males. We want to fix, we want to make better. And we don't realize that sometimes when someone says to us, you know, a girlfriend says, this was a bad day, we're like, okay, cool, so we'll fix it. How can we help? They don't, sometimes they mean, can you just listen and say, yeah, you know, that girl at work is a bitch. Like sometimes that's more important to them. You know? Not that I condone that, but that's what I mean. I think sometimes they just want to be heard.
Yeah.
In a way, actually, it comes back to what we were talking about with yoga in the classes. I'm also starting to realize in class what makes people feel good. I think this is what we all want really, is to be seen, to be noticed, you know? And in my class, I try and make sure you get around and you adjust people, even not necessarily that they needed it, or you go and give some support, but just make everyone in the feel everyone in the room feel like they were noticed. Because especially in the bigger cities, like you're talking about, and I think this comes up a lot, even in Sapiens, what you're reading about the troops of monkeys living together, that after a certain amount, we stop trusting. So in a small enough troop, we can go, oh, I know so-and-so, therefore I can trust them. But when the group gets so big, it starts to actually make two different groups.
Yeah.
Because we go, I don't know that person so well. I haven't had that many interactions. And I think in big cities, we lose that connection with people. Craziest thing, I don't know if it's like it here, but on the tube in London, you bump someone, you often don't even say sorry, and they don't even get offended. You just keep eyes down. And the movie Crash has a great start where I think it says at the beginning, sometimes we get so lonely, we just want to meet someone or be acknowledged by someone, and we literally crash into them just to get that notification. I think that's
Interesting.
And interesting. And again, with this PC world, like, I don't know how you are as a male teacher adjusting females in class. This is starting to get like dangerous territory, right? And it's such a sad thing. Like, I do acro yoga too. And my teacher always says, she's like, it's hard because people don't touch each other anymore because we're so scared of the ramifications. And it's so sad because it's such a big part of us. And I really noticed it going back to Botswana. My mom's a teacher, and I'll go into a class and kids would run to me and like hug her and hug me. And my initial reaction wasn't, what a beautiful, lovely interaction. I was like, am I going to get done? Like, should I put up my hands? And I was thinking, what message are we sending kids if we're not allowed to touch them? We're almost making ourselves guilty by our actions.
That's so funny you said that, Doug, because last week I was at a funeral and my cousin was there, and he's a few years older than me, and we look very similar. And his son,
lucky guy,
his son, who's like 5 years old, ran up to me and sat on my lap straight away and called me daddy, right? And I was like chuffed. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. He calls me daddy. And he's looking up at me. And I didn't know where to put my hands. I don't know how to hold a child.
Right?
No, I have no clue. I have no... and I had... my cousin actually marked it. He's like, Kev's like sitting on his hands.
Yeah.
Because I'm so... it's just that I'm just not used to it, I don't know how to do that, and as you said, it's compounded by the fact that we're not used to touching people. Touching someone is in a platonic way, but an affectionate way, is a real skill. And if you don't do it, you can't be good at it.
No.
But it's a tricky one.
It's a minefield out there.
Do you know studios? And I'm asking now, do you know any studios in London that have those little tickets that say, "Please don't assist me"?
No. But I give the option in my class all the time. I'm like, if you don't want to be touched, put a hand on your belly or whatever now, just so I know ahead of time. And if I haven't asked that, I usually won't adjust anyone. Which is, I don't know if that's a good... I guess the awareness that, people like Bikram allegedly have spoiled it for us. People have done horrendous things out there. I appreciate that. But I think what we're doing is letting those people... We're making out as if those people are the rule, not the exception. And that's a shame. As society, I don't think we're getting better for that. But yeah, it is a tricky thing.
It really is. I mean, I actually think those cards are quite a good idea, because I have said in the past that, put your hand up if you don't want to be adjusted. And someone right in the corner puts their hand up, and I note it, and I carry it teaching the class, and I forget who did it, who put the hand up. So I'm like, right, I'm going to stay away from that corner. And then
it's a shame, because the guy next to him may have gone like, man, I love Kev's adjustments. Why is he... Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's... so tell us... Well, I turn the light on because it's getting dark in here. Yeah. Tell us about your workshops then, because they're called Warrior Workshop.
Warrior Excel Workshop. Yeah, it's something I've been putting together for a while, a couple of years in the making, on and off. It's... it's a combination of things very much that I'm interested in. Its inception was very much in Spain, actually, working on a job, and I realized
in Spain.
We're again there for Game of Thrones, and in a hotel room for 19 weeks, something like that, and really long hours, and I just became aware that I couldn't do it all. I couldn't weight train and stretch and keep up with my fighting and do my gymnastics training separately. So I tried to culminate all of the things together, things I liked. And that's where this warrior yoga idea came up. So putting together strikes from martial arts to keep your orientation good, your balance, and then some gymnastics conditioning to get strong, because I really believe gymnastic conditioning is all about full body tension. And it's something we lose because we go to the gym, you just work chest or isolation. When you're talking about real power, it comes from the whole body. You look at power lifters, jiu-jitsu or martial arts, it's how you use the whole body in conjunction with itself. Using the levers, using the tension to your advantage. And I found it very interesting. Jiu-jitsu, by the way, is like anti-yoga. Like, they looked at the anatomy and were like, in what ways do you compromise the joints best? And that's how they came up with the moves. So you armbar someone, you put their thumb in a certain orientation, that arm is going to break if you carry on pulling. So it's like opposite of yoga, where we're trying to find the orientation of the joints best stacked or in the place that's useful to the body. They're doing the opposite. So
Interesting.
So these workshops are very much, I realize that teaching a class is very difficult because people aren't used to these movement patterns. You know, most people aren't used to moving lefts and rights, opposites, but if you start introducing legs and punches and kicks, it's all over the place. So the XL is very much an introduction to 3 katas. It's actually 1, but I divide it into 3 different things, and we're going to break down these moves and hopefully do the kata together. I was furious to find out about a thing called Budokan, which is very similar, with Shane Cameron.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
So furious when I found out. I was like, I've nailed it. I've got something brand new. And as I'm having that thought, someone's like, it's just like Budokan. I was like, oh, upsetting. But I actually, to keep the integrity of it, I don't watch any of his stuff because I want it to be from my experience, you know. And if it is similar, so be it. But yeah, so that's what the workshop will be. We'll be covering those moves. And I think it's a really cool way to move. It's a new way to move. And I think, if anything I've learned is that the more new ways you learn to move, the better you get at learning new moves. Yes. It doesn't have to be related to that thing. Yeah. But you keep testing yourself in different ranges. Don't get used to one thing. Patrick Beach was talking about it being, you know, you do a lot of yoga, you do the same moves over and over again. Cool. You might get good at that. But you're looking to explore the body. And I just believe that the human body is such an amazing vehicle. Like, it moves in so many ways and will do whatever you tell it to. You know, over enough repetition, it can do amazing things. So, you know, celebrate that while you can. Because just like our lives, it's temporary. I've had a lot of injury in my life. So I'm like, every day I'm not injured, I'm like, you know, amen. Let's celebrate by moving.
That's a great way to end, isn't it?
Oh, wow.
Doug, man, that was class, mate. Yes. I could chat to you for ages. So if people want to find you, where would they go, Doug?
Oh, wow. Good setup. I like that segue. I got a website. I try to keep it all under the same banner. It's The Downward Doug, but make sure you go with the as Downward Doug instead of a Downward Doug or just Downward Doug, because there are cheap imitations out there. Oh, man. So make sure you get The Downward Doug. On Instagram, it's the same. Or on email, yoga@thedownwarddog.com or just thedownwarddog.com on the website. And you can check out retreats. We've got a couple of those coming up this year. Trying to get them really going. That's a tough thing to do. But yeah, Sri Lanka, Maldives, definitely Bali. That one's locked in. So if you want to join, please give me a message and come say hi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kev.
Yeah, man.
Wait, that is really good. I didn't think it would be that easy.
There you go. That's me chuckling at the end. Sorry. I've got a big smile on my face editing this podcast because I had such good fun with Doug. What a great guy. So, yeah, check out Doug. He's going to be over in Dublin again very soon, I'm sure. He also goes to Belfast as well to teach workshops. He's got retreats going on. You can check out his website and his social media. As always, any questions, any comments, any concerns, let me know. Even if you're offended by something, you can let me know. That's fine. You are free to express that, and I'm free to listen. So it's always a pleasure to share this content with you guys and these stories, people's backgrounds that are involved in the yoga world. So, as always, thanks so much, and I'll catch up with you next week.